Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and I was always told I have to voice radio, and today, this is a video I've been looking forward to doing for some time. Bit of a vanity project, but having said that, it's not actually me, so it's not that vain, and, you know, it's Mamoswine. Who doesn't love Mamoswine? That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at every Mamoswine ever. This is a series I like to do a new entry for when we got a bit of time, when there's not a huge amount of news running around. It's a series I very much enjoy doing. We've done Empoleon, we've done Magnezone, we've done a bunch of Pokemon, but today, I'm going Mamoswine, because Mamoswine is my boy. He's my favourite Pokemon. Let's look at every Mamoswine card we've ever had. So Mamoswine made its debut in Legends Awaken in August 2008, and this was an alright card. What we see is the hallmarks of most Mamoswine cards. We've got a very high retreat cost, we've got a lot of HP, water double colourless, 40 damage, flip a coin if heads paralysis, and discard an energy attached to the defending Pokemon. That's alright, but it's kind of expensive, and 40 damage really isn't all that much. Fighting and free colourless energy, 60 damage, plus 40 more, and 40 to one of your opponent's bench, if you're willing to do 40 to yourself. Like a lot of Mamoswine we're going to see today, ladies and gentlemen, these were quite expensive attacks, interesting attacks. I love the fact that it is an ice ground Pokemon in the game, ergo a fighting water Pokemon in the trading card game, and we've got one attack that uses water energy, one attack that uses fighting. The first attack here is really cool, with a heads, you know, you're talking 40 damage plus paralysis plus discarding an energy, but it's just a bit too much energy to do not quite enough damage. The good news is we didn't have to wait very long for our next Mamoswine, which came in the very next set in Stormfront in November 2008. And this was kind of cool. Now, this was a fighting type Mamoswine with a ridiculous retreat cost of 5, and this is rare. You do not see that many Pokemon with a retreat cost of 5. We've still got huge HP here, and fighting double colourless, 30 damage, flip a coin until you get tails, 30 damage times a number of heads. But what's really cool about this is you can restart as often as you like, as long as you're willing to put 2 damage counters on Mamoswine. So I suppose you can restart 6 times, and then you kind of KO Mamoswine, and that's bad. Not necessarily the best attack ever, but really fun, because you get to just start again if you don't hit enough heads, but then again, even doing 60 damage, you've only got a 1 in 4 chance, and, you know, 1 in 8 chance of doing 90 damage, and so on and so forth. But it's kind of fun, and people made rogue decks of this. Water, fighting, double colourless, 60 damage, plus 10 more for each Swinub on your bench, and 20 more for each Piloswine on your bench, and 40 more for each Mamoswine on your bench. We see a lot of this with Mamoswine. Kind of awkward attacks that are fun and interesting and different and could be good if everything goes right. Because let's be clear about this. This could be a great attack. 2 Mamoswine on your bench, 140. 1 Mamoswine, 1 Piloswine, 1 Swinub, 130. There's a lot of setup involved in this second attack, but it does a huge amount of damage when that setup is there. It's a stage 2, it needs a bunch of bench Pokemon, it's for a lot of energy, but if you get that all going, it's awesome. Then we had a promo Mamoswine, the only promo Mamoswine that we have ever had in the Pokemon trading card game, and it was never even released in English. It was part of a set to commemorate the 11th movie, same one from which we saw a Magnezone, just in the last video we did, where we looked at every Pokemon card ever, and it came around in July/August in Japan in 2008, and I mean, it's not a particularly good Mamoswine, but it's beautiful, and it's hollow. I mean, I got myself a copy of this, why would I not? Once again, it's really cool because it's got one attack that uses water energy, and one attack that uses fighting. That makes it interesting. For water double colourless, 60 damage, flip a coin, if heads, 10 to all of your opponent's bench, if tails, 10 to all of yours. or just fighting free colourless 120-40 to yourself. Not amazing attacks, but it's the only promo Mamoswine we've ever had, and beggars can't be choosers. Moving forward into Rising Rivals in May 2009, and while everyone else is getting excited about cards like Luxray GL Level X, I'm getting excited about Mamoswine GL, and this is probably about the closest we ever got to a genuinely playable Mamoswine. The Pokebody here, think passive ability, is absolutely phenomenal, and is one of only 2 abilities we've ever had on a Mamoswine. As long as it's your active, put 1 damage counter on each active Pokemon, yours and your opponent's, between turns. Oh no, wait, not water. Which means that your opponent doesn't take it if they've got a water, but Mamoswine never does. 100 HP is quite high, especially for a basic Pokemon. 1 damage counter between turns is kind of cool, and then you can always use stuff like Poker Turn to pick it back up before it gets KO'd, etc. This was part of some rogue decks here and there, and it was kind of fun, but 4 energy, 60 damage, if heads 10 to all of your opponent's bench, little bit too much. It was fun for spreading damage around, and you could combo it with stuff like Crobat G to get some cheeky bench KOs, but it really was more of a rogue deck than an actual good playable deck. And then we get to Triumphant, which came around in November 2010, and we get a new water-type Mamoswine. Now again we see a retreat cost of 4, which is very high, 140 HP, which was still very high at the time. Water double colourless, 40 damage plus sleep. 2 water, 2 colourless, 70 damage plus 20 to each of your opponent's bench that already had damage counters on them. Again, it's a stage 2, it's kind of expensive, but it's not terrible. It can use double colourless energy, and you see an awful lot of these Mamoswine can use double colourless energy, which makes them more viable in terms of getting the energy on, and you've got a big bulky Pokemon. Then we end up in Plasma Storm in February 2013, and you'll notice as we go along the gaps between Mamoswine are getting quite long. We had to wait from November 2010 until February 2013 for this one. Water double colourless, 50 damage, plus 20 in paralysis if you can flip a heads. That's not too bad. And 2 water, 2 colourless, flip a coin until you get tails, 90 times the number of heads. Now, if this had been kind of like the Mamoswine from Stormfront, and you could restart whenever you wanted at the cost of 2 damage counters, that would be amazing. As it is, you couldn't. And we do see some repetitions in Mamoswine here. Huge HP, this one goes up to 150. Huge retreat cost, and quite expensive attacks that use double colourless energy, but don't do quite enough. And then we get to my Mamoswine. I say my Mamoswine, the Mamoswine that has my favourite artwork. Artwork so beautiful that I actually gave one out at my wedding to everyone on the top table. My wedding, every table was themed after a Pokemon. Obviously, top table was Mamoswine. We gave a card to everyone at each table based on the Pokemon, after which their table was themed. This was a Mamoswine given out to everyone at the top table, like my parents and my in-laws, who were, I'm sure, delighted to receive it. Only the second Mamoswine ever to have an ability, and it takes 30 less damage by attacks from fire or water Pokemon, which does seem weirdly specific, but does fit with the thick fat ability in the video game, so I'm fine with that. And the wonderfully named Primordial Boom, 80 damage. If you've got a stadium in play, you do 120. If your opponent has a stadium in play, heal 40. Not a bad attack at all, but for a fighting and free colourless, not great. But the interesting thing about this Mamoswine wasn't actually the Mamoswine, it was the Piloswine, and this is the closest we've had lately to having a genuinely viable Mamoswine deck. Because for a fighting double colourless, 30 damage, plus 10 more for each energy in the retreat cost of all of your Swinub, Piloswine and Mamoswine. Well, Mamoswine's got a retreat cost here of 4, and Piloswine's got a retreat cost of 2, and I believe Swinub had a retreat cost of 1, And if you add it all together, you could actually get quite a few damage counters going down here, which was really, really funky. As it stands, never saw that much play, but maybe in Expanded, we could make it work, maybe using cards like Team Aqua's Secret Base, which increases the retreat cost of all of your Pokemon in play, potentially adding an extra 6 damage, or 60 damage, 6 damage counters. And the most recent, the final Mamoswine, this was from Crimson Invasion, and it was drawn by Mitsuhiro Arita, who's going to be at Dallas Regionals, so will I. I wonder if I'll get this Mamoswine signed. I definitely will. But again, it's just not particularly great. It's got a huge HP of 180, highest HP of a Stage 2 that we've got in the Sun and Moon block, huge retreat cost, and we've got an alright attack, 60 damage, 30 more for each head you can get from 2 coins. But then a really fun attack, which isn't great, but is really fun. Water, double colourless. How many Mamoswine have coloured double colourless, 2 coloured double colourless as their attack cost? 90 damage, but you can put up to 9 damage counters on this Pokemon, and you do 10 more damage for each one. So you can actually do 180 here, as long as you're willing to put 9 damage counters on Mamoswine. But then, of course, you could use stuff like Lana, for instance, or Manaphy to heal up. Certainly something that's worth a play if you want a nice, fun deck. No, ladies and gentlemen, Mamoswine has never had a phenomenal card. What it has had is high HP and a bunch of really complicated but kind of fun attacks, and that's really cool. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, I would like your Mamoswine related memories. Let me know in the comment section. Tell me about your favourite Mamoswine ever. Have you ever tried to make any of these into a deck, or do you think you could? Go nuts! Be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. Make sure you check out my video game channel, Wassy Plays, which I'm trying to build up, and I would love it if you go and check it out and subscribe. And if you want to support the channel, get some bonus pods, etc., you can do so by going to patreon.com/PTCGRadio. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.